Alright, normally I would be doing a weekly roundup right now because today is Wednesday, but I haven't been able to find a subbed version of episode 2 of the Arc V anime, which is very frustrating. So as soon as that comes out, I will do it and talk about a few things, but until then, it won't be up. So for now, I'm doing another Dragons of Legends discussion, and this I felt was a lot more important than Mathematician to discuss right now, because I think yesterday something got revealed, and this card has put the whole community into outrage, and that card is Soul Charge. So Soul Charge is a normal spell with the effect target any number of monsters in your grave, special summon them, and then you lose 1000 for each monster special summoned by this effect. And you can't conduct your battle phase the turn you use it, and you can only activate one per turn. So pretty much everyone has seen this card and has just been like, what on earth is this? Like, why does this exist? Konami's ruining the game. It's absolutely stupendously broken, and they've been posting combos and decks and whatnot that use it. So I think if you have, there's always plant combos with these things for some reason, but yeah, if you have Lone Fire and Soul Charge, you can make a Shooting Quasar for 2k life. So I'm glad that Shooting Quasar isn't in Europe. JK, I'm actually very sad that Shooting Quasar isn't in Europe. And then obviously there are things like Dragons, which can do first turn combos with the help of Soul Charge and whatnot. So, you know, that's all fine. That's all fine and good. But when I saw Soul Charge, it was a gut reaction, but I wasn't like, wow, so strong. I was a bit skeptical to the hype, as I tend to be. You might have got that from these videos, but like my skepticism is well founded most of the time. So I think that it is quite poignant to talk about this card from all angles. So this video is going to cover in large part why Soul Charge is not as good as you think it is. And I'm not being like a hipster for hipster's sake. I'm not going against the mainstream rationale just for the sake of it. I'm doing it because honestly it makes sense. And if you would prefer a written version of this, or written version of some of this, because I didn't discuss everything that was on my mind in great detail. My user is Harigo7 on Duelist Grounds. So I made a post on the Soul Charge thread. I think it's like page 5. So if you want to read it, then go read it, because I'm more articulate when I type than when I speak sometimes, and I'm quite tired, so it might not make as much sense as it does in written form. So if you would prefer that, then go there, but otherwise stick around, because I'm basically going to be verbalizing everything that I wrote on there and a little bit more. So I started by comparing it with Exciton, in that Exciton was a card that upon its release a lot of people hyped up, which I think I mentioned in the Curry Bandit video. Exciton, upon its release, loads of people hyped it up. They're like, oh my god, it's so broken, and in actuality it wasn't really. It was relatively balanced, almost. So I think that this is like another Exciton, in that yes, it's very powerful, and yes, it will probably have an effect on the meta, but it won't break the game, I don't think. It's not like, rah, the game is over, because there are problems with, you know, like pay 5k summon 5 monsters that I will talk about, which is what most people are afraid of. If the effect were like pay 1k to summon one monster, no one would have a problem with it. If the effect were pay 2k to summon 2 monsters, So it'll just be a rank, like a generic generic Buju Incarnation, except it's not. Whatever the heraldry art thing is called, where you basically just summon 2 and exceed. If it were just pay 2k to summon 2, which would essentially be pay 2k to exceed, no one would have a problem with it. Even if it were pay 3k to summon 3, like, no one would really have a problem with it. The problem that people have is when it's like pay 5k, summon 5. So I will discuss the problems with that, but ironically, because I compare this with Exciton, paying 2k to go into Exciton is really strong. Having a 1-card Exciton is something that a lot of people didn't like. They're like, well, we don't want 1-card field wipes. But 1-card field wipes already exist. Like, any level 4 that floats, like Gear Armor or Wolf Bark, anything like that, essentially creates a free Exciton. So if you flip Armor, Search Accelerator, Summon Accelerator, Overlay Exciton, that's a free Exciton. If you summon Wolf Bark, get level 4, that's a free Exciton, right? So free Excitons have been common for a while. To say that now we have one where you have to skip your battle phase and you pay 2k in order to do it is somehow more powerful than the 1-card Excitons that already exist. In a meta where people play Blackhorn to counter Exciton, because again, I haven't been playing that much, but from what I've been hearing, people are playing Blackhorn to stop Exciton in the Gear Mirror and whatnot. Like, it's an exaggeration. It's hyperbolic to say that 2k into Exciton is a problem. And if it were a problem, this is a point that I neglected to make in my post that I'll make in this video. If 2k into Exciton is a problem, that's not a reflection on Soul Charge. That's a reflection on Exciton. So people posting about dragons and all the dragon things you can do. Dragons are already broken, right? Dragons, the rulers already deserve to be banned. So the fact that you can Soul Charge into rulers and make like Draco Felgrand fields is not a reflection on Soul Charge. Like, Soul Charge allowed them to do that, but it's the rulers that make it OP. It's not Soul Charge. Like, Soul Charge just embellishes on how broken they already are, right? So that's not Soul Charge's design flaw. It's the design flaw of the rulers, which are already broken. So if this leads, like with Curry Bandit, I said if Curry Bandit leads to a deck like Light Swan getting more played and then JD gets banned, then that's fine. I'm happy with that. Likewise, if Soul Charge leads to dragons getting played more and then the dragons get banned, then great. I'm fine with that. Soul Charge would probably go to like 1 as well or something, or get banned. But the problem isn't Soul Charge in those instances. It's the cards which it creates, which can already be created within the decks. So that's a small point. Bear that in mind. So yeah, it's not really it's not really that strong to go into Exciton for 2k expense. And I think that a lot of people who are newer to the game, myself included, to be honest, because I started playing in like 2010, I think. I don't know if it was that late. I started playing really when Duelist Genesis came out, but I didn't play at like a higher level until really like around this time 3 years ago, I think. 3-4 years ago. I think I was like 15. So I'm new, relatively speaking. I wasn't around in good old GOAT days or Teledad days or whatever. I don't have that experience, but I go back and play those formats sometimes. I'm not an expert, but I know a little bit about them. Having played GOAT, you understand quite quickly that life points are important. It's important to conserve them. Like, I would rather flip a GOATs and still be on 8k than go down to 6, 5 and still have the GOATs, right? And obviously that's not the same now, but we seem to have the attitude now that life points are irrelevant, that like you can afford to take like and then just watch your life points go down, down, down until the point where you can come back to stop yourself from losing, which personally I feel is wrong. But it's not my fault that I've been geared to think that way, right? Because as the game has been for a while, being at 8k is like it's quite a lot. Really, you'd only start thinking about preserving your life points over preserving card advantage when you're at like 4k ish. You'd start to go out of your way to protect yourself a little bit more. But like life is important, and with a card like Soul Charge, it turns life into a resource, which is awesome. Like, that is so cool, and we need more cards like that. I think we need more cards like Seven Tools and Warning, not necessarily in terms of how they're designed, but in terms of cards that use life point cost to get effects. Like, every other game has it. Every other game. And I don't mean like Upstart Goblin, like that doesn't count, but I like cards where you lose your life in order to gain tangible advantage exist in other games, and it's great. It's great. When people are saying like, oh, it's Soul Charge 3-off and everything, Soul Charge won't be a 3-off and everything from as simple a thought process as, oh, it's 3 and everything. No, I won't. Because think about it. It really depends on how you want to use Soul Charge. If you're going to use Soul Charge like sparingly, just as that pay 1k go into one monster sort of thing, like pay 1k go into armor, set armor, just like a better call, like a premature, then yeah, of course you can run 3. That's fine. Even if you want to like use one as a 2k into an Exceed, and then the other ones are just like sparing prematures, then yeah, you can afford to run it. But that's a thought process you have to make. Like, it's not as simple as you run 3, because every time you resolve it, you are getting closer to losing in a life sense, right? And you're also forfeiting your battle phase. So you probably won't resolve 3 in a game. But then, especially not how most of you think it will be resolved, which is, and when I say most of you, I don't mean to generalize, but I mean like most of the community that I've observed. It won't be pay 5 into 5 monsters most of the time, and if it is, then you're probably not gonna run 3, because it means that firstly the other ones that you would draw later would be dead, but also you aren't going to do that until late game. You aren't going to have the 5 monsters engraved that you want to summon until late game. And there are counters to that, which I will discuss. But generally, from a theoretical standpoint, you won't have the graveyard set up to accommodate a pseudo rekindling-esque effect of Soul Charge until late game. And that means that the ones that you draw early on, because if you run 3, then you'll draw them early on, will be dead. It's like why people ran 2 Avarice when it was at 3. Avarice is obviously a great late game card, right? But it was dead in the early game. It didn't do anything because you couldn't resolve it. And if you can't resolve it in the early game, then it just sits in your hand as it's effectively a -1 until the point at which it becomes live, because it doesn't do anything. unless you set it as a bluff and then they MST it and then it trades as an even. But it's relatively situational, and that's an unproductive use of the card, right? Granted, as I said, there are uses to Soul Charge, which Avarice does not have. It has uses in the early game, but again, paying 1k into one monster is not broken. It's not something that people complain about. So I'm discussing it more from the standpoint of pay 5 to go into 5, which I don't think most people will do. I think that most people will figure out that is not how you're going to do things most of the time. There'll be like the one game in 20 where you may top it in a late game scenario where you have like 5,100 left and 5 things engraved, and then you choose to do that. That may happen once in a while, but not frequently enough to make it fair. But I still have to discuss it, alright? Because this is what everyone is afraid of. Again, if you summon 3 for 3k, it wouldn't be that powerful. So because of that, in terms of how you would use it, like you would either decide to run 3, but then if you ran 3, you would accept that the ones that you draw early on would either be dead or would be used like more logically. You wouldn't run them if they were going to be dead, right? If you ran 3 and then they were dead, the rational thing to do would be to drop like 1 or 2. So if you ran 3, the reason why you would keep the third one in there is because you want it in the early game, which means that you're using it as like a better Call of the Haunted, a better Premature Burial, which is fine. Again, there's no problem with that. Or you run it at like 1 to 2, and you accept that it is a late game comeback card, right? It is the card that you want to just sit there until the point at which it becomes live, and then you're like, and pay 4k, 5k, and summon a bunch of things as a comeback contingency. But that would establish it as a comeback card. And the reason why it is a comeback card is because even though it doesn't say specifically like that you're not going to use it when you have other monsters on the board, like you wouldn't use it if you had a good setup. If you already had the Draco Felgrand, or just a Draco or a Felgrand, or a Giga X or something, like you wouldn't feel the need to Soul Charge. Your setup is good enough, and you can apply pressure through attacking, right? You force them to react. This is a very important Yu-Gi-Oh principle that again you come to learn through playing GOAT and things like that. Again, I'm not a veteran, but I'm just applying principles that I've learned. Is that like if you attack first, then it forces it allows them to harm you, to react to you, right? So it's better to try and like provoke them into coming at you so that you can respond to them and then counterattack essentially. Counterattack is a really strong sort of mentality in these sorts of games. So like rather than say you have the Soul Charge, rather than like you have the Felgrand being like Soul Charge, Felgrand number 2, deal with that, and then watch, like allow them to, you just pressure them with the 1. The 1 is enough. You pressure them with the 1, attack them a little bit, and then they're like, damn, I have to deal with this. And then either they don't and they lose, or they do. And then if they do, you're like, well, Soul Charge. Allowing you to come back, because you have come back from them coming back from you, right? It increases interaction. This little game that we play between opponents, it allows you to respond to them. But because it is a comeback card, right, it has its limitations. Compare it with something like Reborn, which I did. Again, like I'm really tired, so I'm not thinking entirely clearly. but I'm trying to remember everything off the top of my head. So comparing it with something like Reborn, the reason why Reborn is better than this card, a lot of people have been like, "Wow, they banned Reborn and then made this." Yeah, because Reborn is better than this card is, right? Firstly, because of the card design restrictions that are in place on this card that aren't in place on Reborn. Reborn can summon something from either player's grave, which is really important. But also this can only be used once per turn, which, you know, Reborn was at once, so that wasn't really a problem. But also you can't conduct your battle phase, which is huge, and you take life, which is also pretty huge. But also, what I've just been saying, you aren't going to use Soul Charge if you already have a good setup. Reborn allows you to embellish on an already good setup. The reason why you're not going to Soul Charge when you already have a good setup is because you can't attack. You can't attack the turn you use it. And what is the point of special summoning a bunch of things? It's to attack, right? That is the end. Like, the means of special summoning reaches the end of attacking for game. And they designed it so you can't OTK. Reborn could let you OTK on top of an already established field. So Reborn allows you to further develop an already established field, right? But also acts as a comeback card. It functions as both, which Soul Charge doesn't do. You are rarely going to Soul Charge when you already have an established field, right? So and again, this is assuming that you want to use Soul Charge as a pay 5k summon 5 monsters type of thing. So it does set itself up as a comeback card, which isn't really isn't really that good. It isn't as good as people necessarily think it is because of the restrictions that are in place on it. And if you compare it to something like Avarice, again, like Avarice isn't necessarily a great example because drawing and special summoning are different, and Soul Charge has more applications, I guess, than Avarice does. But Avarice doesn't have those restrictions, so you can Avarice when you have an already semi-established field. You can Reborn on an already established field, and they potentially allow you to attack for game. Soul Charge is more, you pay 5k, you get a setup, and then you try to set up a field that they can't get past. So it's very like gung-ho when you use it like that, in terms of either you make a field that they can't break and then you win the next turn, or because you can't attack, the next turn they do something to get around it. Which is a lot weaker than people think it is, right? And again, I think the card is very good, but these weaknesses that exist within it are manageable weaknesses. I think that the amount of times where you will be particularly annoyed that someone has used Soul Charge on you will be minimal. And also just on a very basic level, like, if you get to the late game stage where you have 5 monsters in grave, not just 5, but like 5 things that you would want to revive in grave, and you have like 5/1 life, then that's, or more, you know, you have like over 5k life, that's not all that likely. And people talking about, oh, it makes dragons and stuff more played. If dragons get more played, do you think that you'll be on 5k life for long? When again, things like 7 tools and warning are popular in the meta. Granted, Upstart is quite popular in the meta, but do you think that you'll have that much life, even like mid game, to do the sort of pay half your life, drop a bunch of things effect? I personally don't think that you would. um, that often. But then there are things like dragons and light swans people have been talking about, which can obviously load the grave really quickly early on in the game, which makes a soul charge drop pretty powerful. I think things like light swans, dragons, obviously Mamels, Boojins. I think that out of those, I would only really, I mean, Boojin already have Incarnation, and I really don't think that they will soul charge into like and then overlay into a good field very often. I think that they would use it more as a pay 1k 2k to get their Exceed or you know Yamato or something. That sort of application. I don't think soul charge in Bujin is necessarily a problem, like it's been made out to be. Mamel, I don't think that Mamel are good enough as a deck necessarily, but apparently they've done pretty well at Vegas. I don't know. I haven't checked anything. So, but yeah, they can load the grave pretty early. Well, dragons are broken as it is. But I said that before. So if this leads to a potential banning of the dragons, then great. But the fact that it propagates dragons to do more than they already could do, it just gives them another return. Really, it gives them more returns, which is not great, obviously, but if they want to make these sorts of power cards, then they have to ban the dragons. It's as simple as that, because dragons were already really good as it is. Like I've had a lot of fun playing them over the past 4 months or so, and I've done pretty well for myself. But I understand that they are broken. So the fact that these, that Soul Charge makes these cards even more overtly powerful, I don't think is necessarily a bearing on Soul Charge. I think it's a reflection on the dragons, which themselves are already broken. And then yeah, a bunch of bad decks can make use out of it. Yeah, cool. Like plants can do stuff with it. Light Swan can do stuff with it. Good for you. Like that's great. I don't think Soul Charge will suddenly make bad decks good. Not at all. And even if the shooting Quasar becomes meta or something because of Soul Charge, which probably won't, but even if it does, like, then ban shooting Quasar. That's not a bearing on Soul Charge. Shooting Quasar is already incredibly poor card design. Like it's one of the most strongest cards ever made. Right? So with that card, it's only a matter of time before someone found out some way to make it consistently. And everyone knew that at that point the card would be gone. Like, so the fact that has come does not mean that the means of getting to it are broken. Right? It like shooting Quasar is a problem already. It's just a card that hasn't been hit yet because there's been no point. It hasn't done anything. And that happens, and so be it. Again, with Light Swan, if it leads to JD getting banned, then great. But Light Swans, like using Light Swans as an example as to why a card is good is often not a strong argument. Because Light Swans are inherently luck based. So, yeah, you can mill monsters that you want to do stuff with and then soul charge them back. But conversely, you can mill the soul charges. You know, it's an argument founded in luck. But yeah, this is to flip everything on its head now. I understand that the things that soul charge enables are too strong. And I think it's unfortunate because I think that they were so close with what they wanted this card to be designed to be. They were so close. Again, if they put like max 2 or 3, then it would have been it would have been completely fine. Would have been completely fine if they put a couple more restrictions on it, like start your main phase 1, control no monsters. Would have been completely fine, right? Even if they put something weird like you can't summon more than 2 other monsters until you activate this effect. Something weird like that would have been fine, but it is just a little too strong, realistically speaking. But a little too strong in my mind. Say there's a scale, right? Most of you think it's like here, which is like absolutely broken, and I think it's like here, which is, you know, all right. And then in actuality it's somewhere in the middle. That's probably more realistic. Again, I think I said on the post, like, I almost like this card. I almost like it, which is the truth. I almost think that it is fine. I almost think that it's something that has a positive influence on the game. Because it's a mass plus that doesn't let you OTK, right? If powerful cards, like the fact that it doesn't let you OTK is huge. It's huge. Because the whole reason why mass special summoning cards are great is because they enable you to OTK most of the time. So now it becomes, you know, a pay X life to set up, which I think is fine because it uses life as a resource, and it's fine because it just capitalizes on what already exists. It doesn't bring new things into existence that previously didn't exist. It's not like they're releasing a new archetype full of broken cards or anything. Alongside it, it's generic, so it can be played alongside whatever already exists. So if something that already exists happens to make it more powerful, then that's a problem with what already exists. It just allows what already exists to show its true potential. So I think that's fine, but then it is just a little too strong, realistically speaking. And whether or not it will have an impact on the meta or not, I think it will. I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether it will have as much of an effect on the meta as people are estimating. Bringing like dragons to be the best deck, things like that. And also after Primal Origins, because you know artifacts probably won't play multiples of this. I think in my build, I put 1 in because I ran Pot of Dichotomy, and I thought that this was better than Dichotomy as a late game reset card. So I put 1 in, but they won't play it. Boojins, whether they'll play or not, I don't know. Whether Gigi will play it or not, I don't know. But everything could, which is nice. The fact that everything could but might not necessarily do is nice. I definitely don't think it's a 3-off and everything. And so close to being correctly designed. But yeah, again, like if you think that it would be easier to read a post, then go check that post out on Duelist Grounds if you want to. Again, I am really tired, and I've been trying to articulate it as best as I can, but I thought it was important to make a video on it because it is something that has just been announced. I couldn't do a weekly roundup for today, but it's huge, you know, it's huge. Dragons of Legend is looking like a awesome set, man. An awesome set. So that would be incredibly interesting. I wish I was going to Nats in Paris and things like that now, but unfortunately I can't. So whatever. Hopefully I can go to Euros, but you know, that's something separate. So yeah, basically Soul Charge is great. It's very strong, but there are a lot of nuances in terms of how you use it. It isn't as simple as summon a bunch of things. It's really a lot more technical and commands a lot more intricate of a thought process than a lot of people think, and it uses life as a resource, and it's almost designed well. It's almost designed well, which is so incredibly frustrating because you almost got it right, Konami. You almost got it. But you were just a little too light on the restrictions that you put on it, which is frustrating. But yeah, anyways, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you around.